Good morning, everyone. Today we are gathered here for a very important session and a very contemporary session, and I hope that as researchers and scholars, we will take a lot of learning from the distinguished and eminent panelists that we have here today. May I kindly request the dignitaries to please come on stage. I would now request our Vice-Chancellor to please felicitate our guests and welcome them to this important program. I would request our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Joshi, to please welcome Shri Yashvir Singh. Please welcome Shri Ambassador Gurjeet Singh. Shri 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐻𝐿. Shri R.S. Ratna. Dr. Smita Sirohi. So, a brief introduction of our eminent guests and panelists who are here so that we can benefit from their experience and their learning. Shri Yashvir Singh is a 1995 batch Indian Economic Service Officer, and he has been as an additional secretary in the Department of Commerce under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. Currently, a very important portfolio that he's handling is that he's in charge of the contact group on trade and economic issues, CJT. As you're aware, India is currently, the presidency of BRICS is with India. And I'm also happy to announce that IIFT is also a knowledge partner as part of this group. So please give him a round of applause. Sir, we look forward to your inputs on this important session. Ambassador Gurjeet Singh has joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1980 and has an illustrious career of 37 years. Sir, we are truly honored to have you here with us. He has served in many countries across Africa, and his international experience will truly help us understand how India can benefit from the, as a membership of the BRICS here. Mr. 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐷, Shri 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 and he has held many other portfolios as well. Sir, thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope to gain a lot from your inputs as well. Please keep giving a round of applause. I hope I don't have to keep repeating myself. Welcome the guests. They have taken time out from very important, their duties, and they have come to join us here. We then have Dr. Rajan Sudesh Ratna. He is also an alumni of IIFT. He has also done his PhD from IIFT. So that is the first credit that we are going to take, sir. And currently he is with the RIS, apart from serving, being with the United Nations for a very long time. And he has also contributed to a lot of inputs in terms of FTAs, etc. Now we have Dr. Smita Sirohi. Ma'am has been with IIFT for a long time. We always take her guidance and inputs in a number of our panel discussions. Ma'am's specialization is that she's an alumnus of Delhi School of Economics, and also the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Her specialization is in agriculture as well, and ma'am, we hope to gain a lot from your inputs here as well. So a round of applause to all our panelists, and now I would request Professor Joshi to please initiate the discussions.
You know, we are so fortunate to have the galaxy of the people today on this dais. So I think it's a rare opportunity when we have got, so experienced panel. Ambassador Gurjit Singh has been a, seasoned ambassador and highly dynamic one. And he has been the Sherpa of India-Africa Forum Summit. And during the India-Africa Forum Summit 1, 2008, he was posted in Ethiopia as an ambassador. And, we had a mega program on Africa in that point of a time. And as a part of that, I as the project director, he was the first contact whom I met in Ethiopia. And, our meeting started with a lot of protocol that the embassy has got. And then I think he became our ambassador to talk about IIFT across the world. And, we did amazing task. We were given in, Uganda. That time, then he came back here as a Sherpa for Forum 2, and then he was also, additional secretary that time. So I think we used to, our even secretary used to go there for our this Uganda project, but somehow, we had and IIFT was only one Pan-African institute which we had to set up there. But I think the African governments, I think those who have worked, they know how difficult it was. So I think hardly any project saw light of the day. But IIFT could steer through because we conducted programs across 33 countries, the training programs physically at all those places. And so thank you for being with us. Shri Yashvir Singh ji is the additional secretary with the Ministry of Commerce, so he is the present, and he is leading our GETI negotiations on the BRICS, of which India is the chairperson on the trade and economic issues, and he is also looking after multiple portfolios, including Africa as well. So we look forward to his insights, support, and guidance to the institute in taking forward. Shri 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐿 is a very old friend. He is brightest of the bright. He is an alumni of IIM Ahmedabad, but he joined civil services, and only IIM Ahmedabad alumni can join IIFT in the PhD program, so he also joined PhD program at IIFT. But somehow, government always, don't want its people to work, तो उनको वक्त नहीं मिला उस समय, तो जैसे हमारा अफ्रीका प्रोजेक्ट दूसरी तरह से थोड़ा स्टॉल हुआ, बट आई थिंक ही इज ए प्रोलिफिक राइटर. सबसे पहले उन्होंने किताब लिखी, उन्होंने 100 नुस्खे बताए कि सरकार अगर उसको यूज़ करे तो कैसे सरकार आगे बढ़ सकती है. तो एंड देन आई थिंक आई हैड अपॉर्चुनिटी टू बी इन मेनी ऑफ हिज बुक रिलीज फंक्शन. Similarly, Ambassador Gurjit Singh is also a prolific writer. He writes books right and left. Only last week his book was released by the Shaktikanta Das last week only. So he is a prolific writer, and he is also he keeps on writing number of things. Rajan Ratna ji is our own friend. He has been a professor at IIFT, heading WTO Center for long. And incidentally, as Pooja said, he has been our alumni. He got the PhD from IIFT. तो इन्होंने बहुत मेहनत की FTA के PhD में. रोज presentation करते थे, है ना? So we have a very great memories of him. And then Smita Sirohi is a scientist. He's a professor. He's a big economist. And she was trade advisor at Indian mission at Brussels. So when we were doing our study for the ex-ante study for EU-India foreign trade deal, which was sponsored by MEA, tab I think she helped us a lot in organizing a number of meetings. And she also helped us in another thing. This project we got from her. She also helped us in our dairy project, where Arunima was with me, and Jacqueline was also. So we were doing that project, that's India's roadmap for India 2030 dairy export. So I think, so all of them are experts on, on foreign issues and BRICS. So we'll go. And now I think I'll give the command to, Shri Yashvir Singh and, Ambassador Gurjit Singh, because they are probably the best. Okay. Minutes is, sir, 1 hour total. आप डिसाइड कर रहे हैं, यू आर द बॉस. हाँ, 8 to 10 minutes ओके है ना.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Professor Joshi, and I am very happy to be here today in the midst of all the stalwarts from the foreign affairs, I would say, in terms of BRICS, because BRICS is something which has to deal more with our membership of this important forum. And we have former ambassadors, former additional secretary from Department of Commerce, then Madam Smita is there, then Ratna is there. They are all experts in this field. So I am the newest of all because I have been given this charge just 2 months back. So I am here more to understand, more to learn, more to hear from their experiences and their insights. So just to start the discussion, though I have some data with me, but I think it's better not to go by the data and go about the way the current geopolitical turbulence, which is the topic of today, how BRICS is going to fare in these turbulent times, and how a multipolar world would let BRICS also come up as a forum which has a diverse membership. As you are all aware that there were only initially 4 members who started it as BRIC. And then when South Africa joined it in 2010, it became BRICS. And now we have 11 members. So Egypt, Ethiopia are 2 members from the African continent, which have joined apart from South Africa. Then you have Saudi Arabia and UAE from the Middle East. Then Iran and Indonesia. So together with these members, it has become a 11-member group now. And in 2026, India is holding the chairship of BRICS. So in these turbulent times, when the entire world is going through an upheaval in terms of trade and economic relations, the challenge before BRICS is not only to address the issues which are at hand, which are affecting all the members of the BRICS, also all the members of the WTO, because the multilateral trading system which has been in place since the coming into force of the WTO in January 1995, that is facing an existential challenge right now. Because the big economic powers, they are coming up with unilateral decisions, unilateral measures, which undermine the efficacy or the efficiency or the role of the multilateral trading system. So BRICS is trying to anchor the whole multilateral trading system and multilateral trade in a way that we follow the rules of trade, and whatever happens in the geopolitical scenario should be maneuvered in such a way that trade is not affected by these geopolitical issues. It remains outside of them. But then it's easier said than done, because most of the decisions which are being taken by the big powers in today's times, they are decided more based upon the economic issues, and trade is a big part of economic decision making as of today. So in this multipolar world, how BRICS can maneuver these challenges, this is something which we are trying to address during the chairship of India in this year. So the geopolitical aspects are being handled by the Ministry of External Affairs, but when it comes to trade and investment, it is the Ministry of Commerce and Industry which is heading these contact groups. The CJT, the Contact Group on Economic and Trade Issues, is being headed by the Department of Commerce, and we have had the first meeting, which was a virtual meeting early in April, and we had the second meeting just last month in Gandhinagar, Gujarat. The biggest challenge right now is that to keep the BRICS countries together, because there are forces which are right now very much active, which are leading to a position where there can be frictions or there can be fragmentation within BRICS also. I'm just giving an example that the conflict which is going on right now in the Middle East, two members of BRICS, Iran and the UAE, and Saudi Arabia also. So they are on different sides in this conflict. So though it's a geopolitical issue, but it is having its impact on the trade as well. So for us to keep everybody together and to address those issues which serve the common interests of all the members. When I say all the members, it includes these new members as well, because so far the focus was more on the original members of the BRICS because they were the big developing economies. But now with Indonesia, another big developing economy, the Saudi Arabia, Egypt coming up, then smaller economy, UAE again is a big economy, and the smaller economies like Ethiopia have joined. So this makes it a very diverse group. And the interests also of all these members, they are a bit divergent. So just to ensure that the common interests of the BRICS members are taken forward, and we try to further enhance the membership of the BRICS, because there is a big number of countries who are aspiring to be the members of the BRICS. So keeping those things in mind, our endeavor is that the common issues which can be addressed by the members, which can be taken forward in the interest of the economic and trade, the future of economics and trade in these members, is what we are focusing on. So the four priority areas where we are right now focusing on in the BRICS CGT are, first is the internationalization of the MSMEs. Because the MSMEs in all these countries are the backbone of their industry or their economy. So we are focusing on internationalization of the MSMEs by ensuring that there is an adequate flow of financial resources to the MSME sector. The technological support is given to the MSME sector so that it can come up and compete with the rest of the world. Second is on DPI, the digital public infrastructure. India has been in the forefront of DPI for a very long time now, and we have been able to establish a robust DPI within the country, and we want to now take it forward outside the country as well. So we are portraying it as one of the success stories of India, and we want the BRICS members to adopt some of the best practices which we have followed and which we have been able to install in our country, which have helped us in ensuring the delivery of goods and services from the government or the private sector to the citizens. So the digital public infrastructure which has been in place, I think we all sitting in this room are in one way or the other using some or the other digital platforms for our transactions or for availing certain services. And that is an example which we want the other members also to emulate in a way that India gets an advantage in exporting its specialization or technology in the digital public infrastructure. And we are also able to learn from the best practices of the other members, because they also have in some way or the other introduced technological interventions and innovations which serve their citizenship. Third is strengthening the multilateral trading system, which is at the core of what I was just talking about in the beginning of my introduction. That in this multipolar world, ensuring that the multilateral trading system is preserved and it functions in a manner that the rules-based trade, which is open, which is fair, which is equitable, which is inclusive, non-discriminatory, it remains at the core. Then only we can ensure that the fruits or the benefits of global trade are reaped by all members and they are equally shared by the citizens of the world. So it's not that in a multilateral system the interest of one country or one group of countries, like some custom union, for example, as we refer to them in the WTO parlance. It's not to be focused on a specific country or a group or a customs union. It has to be equitably distributed amongst all the members of the WTO. So this is something which is right now being challenged, which has taken a hit in the recent times by some of the unilateral measures taken by major economies in the last one and a half years. And lastly, we are focusing on the improvisation of technology and the spread of technological innovations within these BRICS members. So these areas are something which are going to take us in the positive direction and not focus too much on the geopolitical conflicts or the geopolitical aspects, rather focus more on future based on technology, based on availability of finances and credit to the MSME sector, and to restore the credibility and the strength of the multilateral trading system. So with these words, I think I've just laid the background for the discussion for today when we talk about the future of BRICS amidst these turbulent times. And we have luminaries sitting to my left and right who have a lot of experience in handling international affairs, especially when it comes to forums like BRICS. And I hope that the audience is able to get an insight into how these organizations or these institutions, they have been functioning, what challenges are there before them, and how to overcome these challenges based upon the experience and the expertise which is available today on the dais. So I would request Ambassador Gurjeet Singh sir to please share his insights and talk about the challenges which the BRICS as a small group of countries is facing today and how it can overcome these challenges and then move ahead in a manner that not just under India's chairship, but in future as well, it works as a cohesive group which takes into account the interests of the global south, especially the developing countries, and takes them to a position where they are able to establish themselves as an economic power with a voice, with a force, with strength. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Joshi, for inviting me. I'm very happy to be back in IIFT. I was telling somebody that when I joined the Foreign Service in 1980, I did a training program at IIFT in Nehru Place. Many of you are surprised that there was IIFT in Nehru Place. It used to be there. And I did two, with Professor Mehta and Professor Sumitra Chishti. And later, I think when I was posted somewhere, I came for a midterm program for commercial officers to IIFT. At that time, it was this campus. And then, of course, I worked a lot with Professor Joshi on Africa. Thank you, Yashvir. I think you gave a very good exposition of what you are doing from Ministry of Commerce with BRICS now. And in this global turmoil, I think what they are trying to do is the correct thing. Essentially, if you want to save BRICS, not only from the world, but from itself, you must do these kind of things. And if you see the last meeting of the Quad foreign ministers, it is precisely doing the same thing, insulating the political frailties within and going to what can be consolidated. Otherwise, frankly, it is the wrong time for India to be the chair of BRICS. It's not a good year. There's just too many contradictions. You will spend a lot of diplomatic capital trying to paper over differences, which are not going to be resolved. You know, China and India, can this ever be resolved? Now, Iran and UAE, Saudi Arabia, can it be resolved? Egypt and Ethiopia, we admitted them at the same time, sworn enemies over the dam and the Nile rivers. Not going to ever be resolved. So the point is that the conceptualization of BRIC was not correct. And yet we carried on with it, and then it became BRICS. It became BRICS because actually there was another body called IBSA, India, Brazil, South Africa. 3 continents, 3 democracies. And when President Lula of Brazil used to hold the BRIC, he used to also hold the IBSA at the same time. And these were not meant to be summits. They were meant to be ministerial meetings. But Lula loved summits. So he said everything will become a summit. So the South African president used to come for IBSA summit and then would have to sit outside while everybody else went and met for the BRIC summit. So finally they decided, "Bhai, isko bhi saath le hi lo, at least har meeting mein aa jayega na." Otherwise, if you look at the original BRIC criteria, South Africa did not meet it, economic criteria. So, having diluted the criteria then, and then imposed a moratorium, you ended up with egg on your face when you lifted the moratorium. In 2023, South Africa and China played hand in glove and overcame the BRIC consensus, which was on criteria-based expansion. And suddenly said, after the meeting at the dinner, "Oh, we are admitting these," how many countries? 6 countries. Out of 6 countries, 1 has not joined. And Saudi Arabia, we are not certain. Are they in, are they out? Did they come to your meeting? Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. But Argentina doesn't come. So what kind of expansion was this? You brought in Ethiopia and Egypt, which were enemies. You brought in Iran, which was under US sanctions. And you brought in, Indonesia, interesting. Indonesia was invited but declined. But when the president changed, he said, "No, I'm coming in." Then he came in. So we have got an open door policy on BRICS. And now we don't know how to shut the door on the others. So it has become a diffuse organization which has no clarity of purpose, except China wants it to be a group of countries which will back China for the leadership of the world, in which certainly India is not going to join that group. So we are not in that group, so we are isolated. To be isolated and then be a chairman is the worst situation to be in. That's where you are. Now, when you look at, so you can handle that, but look at the kind of problems which come up. Now, 2 of your members are actually fighting, UAE and Iran at the moment. How do you solve their problem? You don't want to take either side, so you don't go with the communique, you go with the chair statement. Fine? Then we admitted our dear brothers from Africa, Egypt and Ethiopia. The real person to be admitted should have been Nigeria and not Ethiopia. But the South Africans don't like Nigeria, but they think challenger hai. So Ethiopia ko le aao. Ethiopia has no challenge to anybody. Ethiopia will not even be able to pay its subscription for the new development bank. So why did we bring them in? Just to milk us. Anyway, our 2 African brothers joined. Until 2023, now I'm talking of international governance. The formulation is that the BRICS supports the aspirations of India, Brazil and South Africa to be permanent members in a reformed UN Security Council. The first thing our African brothers do after joining is to oppose that formulation, already approved for 2 summits. And to humor them now, if you read the last thing, it just says, no, we will generally support Global South. This specific reference, India, Brazil, South. This is BRICS. What purpose does it serve us? No clarity. Second, let's look at out of the 11 countries in BRICS, I'm talking now about WTO, which you mentioned, only 9 are members. And that 9 include Russia. Imagine Russia being in WTO. China, who has used WTO the best to fix everybody else. The two countries who are not members yet are Ethiopia and Iran. Ethiopia will become, Iran will never become. Now, if you look at the WTO, all the problems actually, I think you went to Cameroon, are actually not created by these countries, created by the United States. So we are all suffering because of them. So China then tells everybody, see how bad the United States are. My idea of a global civilization, global development is much better than their idea. Come behind me. So what the United States is doing in the world, again I'm referring to this geopolitical turbulence, is actually pushing countries towards China. And that is the problem. It doesn't serve us because we are not ones to be pushed. But today, the Americans can't assure you anything. I don't know if you are aware, but there was an election to the non-permanent members of the UN Security Council yesterday. Philippines from Asia, backed by the Americans, the Japanese, maybe us and everybody else, lost to Kyrgyzstan. Why? Because Kyrgyzstan is backed by China, and China pulls the levers on many countries in Africa, Latin America, and say, you vote for Kyrgyzstan. Otherwise, can you imagine Kyrgyzstan playing a role in the Security Council? So that is the reality. So if we were to come up for an election, the Chinese will do the same to us. And being with the Americans doesn't help. So global governance is not benefiting from BRICS because of inherent contradictions in it. Coming to MSMEs, I think that is one of the good ideas. But it has many practical problems. The nature of MSMEs and their definition among BRICS members all different. There's no coherence. How do you actually bring them together? The MSME in Ethiopia is what we would call micro. So they don't link. They have no collateral to give. They have nothing to provide. So I have been working on what is called impact investing, where we channel private funds into micro industry to achieve the SDGs. And we have got 8 funds, about $1 billion, $1.5 billion under management. We are doing a lot of work in Africa now. And interestingly, all the people who contribute to our funds are all G7 DFIs. Last being JICA, who gave $40 million last year to us. So we are actually doing this work on the ground, keeping China and Russia out, bringing the Indian model of running businesses into Africa, Asia, Southeast Asia, our neighborhood, in what is the global south for us. So I think that somewhere we need to bring in. Can we have a global south fund or a BRICS fund which will support achievement of the SDGs? Because we are all behind on that. So we need to do something to pull that up. But there I think there is insufficient attention being paid, and SDGs cannot be achieved only through governmental action. And that is the problem. So we need to go beyond into private funds, venture equity funds, into private sector, into funds like the ones I told you about. Some way that needs to be improved. And coming to the other point that you made about, globally, how do you link the currencies and DPI? Well, DPI is a great example of a global south invention which can actually benefit others. It's like the EVM, no? But I know how many countries we offered the EVM to, and they did not want it. But they do not want the transparency it brings. Let's be honest about it. The DPI, and not only DPI, the whole India stack has been offered to many countries in the global south by India, whether under BRICS or under any other rubric. Why does it not get picked up? Okay, Singapore takes Indian UPI and then says, now you wait, I will sort it out with the rest of ASEAN. When they are ready, I will tell you. So Singapore has become my stepbrother to take me into ASEAN, and I am not supposed to do anything. Are we ready to, in reciprocation, to allow Singaporean UPI to enter India? Will our regulation allow it? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But that is what many people tell us, that you can't have only a giving of a model. You must have an exchange of model. But that part is not entirely clear to me. But I think the main reason why DPI doesn't get picked up is because countries have got used to receiving things free in the global south. They don't want to pay for it. Whereas we would like it to be taken on as a commercial, if I'm wrong, please correct me, commercial view, that you will buy the technology from us and implement it. They see no value in that. After all, in Kenya, M-Pesa is running on the phone. They say that is good enough. So, while it is a good model, I think the commercialization of it remains open to work. I won't say doubt, the work. It needs to be worked on. So like this, there are many things, but to conclude, I would like to say, India would endeavor at this BRICS summit to paper over the cracks and try and come up with solid functional cooperation, which would include the thing Yashvir mentioned. Plus, I think it would include the startups, it would include the other smart initiatives, it would include SDGs and other such things, on which we have no quarrel. But how much of these will be funded by the new development bank? I am not clear. How much will China put through the AIIB? I am not clear. So funding still remains. I mean, you can say I am not with the Americans, but then ultimately I'll go back to the Multilateral Development Bank for the similar funding. These contradictions will remain, and India needs to work very carefully that we are not seen as an anti-American initiative under any circumstances through BRICS. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think from the speech of both of them and from Ambassador Gurjit Singh ji, that how delicate is the diplomacy, and you'll understand that India taking chair of BRICS at such a turbulent time, and therefore, sir, our entire conference is on navigating through these turbulent times, including the BRICS. India, on one hand, it wants to be neutral, but we are part of I2U2. So I2 is Israel, India, UAE, and America is absolutely a group with America, and then Iran, and then and the present crisis, whatever is, and then as you have seen, the America threatened that if BRICS goes for alternative currency to US dollar, then 100% more tariff. So it's a threatening, but you do not know in this unpredictable world when this threatening become to a reality. And therefore, I am sure that India will stay away anything with currency. America will stay away from anything antagonizing America. And it's very delicate to have countries like Israel and UAE in the same group. So it's a very delicate, and I am sure that India will navigate through this. So let's listen to other Dr. Shri Daduji, please. Now, especially you can focus on how to navigate through these troubled times, the strategy. I think they have set a background, on the issues, but what India should do now.
I have a slightly different perspective, Ambassador. I'll be a little more positive. I've attended 3 sessions at ISC with some leading speakers, and I'd like to quote some of them. See, Ambassador 𝐶𝐞𝐻 from South Africa, he said that the UN Charter is being crushed into the dustbin by the very nations that wrote it. He also said there is no peace without justice and no justice without peace. sovereignty, prohibition of force, human rights, all three are pillars which are being violated simultaneously by the Charter's own founding custodians. We move on then to Shashi Tharoor, who said, the UN can save humanity from hell, but it cannot take it to heaven. He also said that humanity must resolve that it has the capacity for transcendence. And he also outlined what Truman said in 1945 when he said in San Francisco, President Truman said, we must give up the right to do as we please. The third speaker is Canadian PM Carney at Davos, who says that the strongest have self-exempted themselves from the rules they authored themselves. And he says fragility happens when even one stops performing. If you're not on the table, you're on the menu. The point I'm trying to make is that if you look at the founding fathers of the UN Charter, they clearly laid out a principle which we are forgetting today. If you look at India, it is countering the hegemonistic tendencies of US by holding the foreign ministers' Quad meeting in May here. And it is countering China it is countering US by holding the BRICS meeting here and countering China by holding the Quad foreign minister, both in the month of May. This goes to show the enormous amount of trust that India as a country, and especially in the global south, holds over the entire globe. If you look at India, it's the founding member of BRICS. It is a member of Quad. It's an ex-chair of G20. No other country has these qualifications. So I, for one, believe that India has, as a BRICS member, 5 major contributions to make, and it is making them pretty well. Number one, through BRICS Pay, interoperability is being created. This, if it happens, the dollar, which has already become 43% of the global reserve, will get a big hit. Number two, the new development bank that you alluded to, $43 billion, for your information, has been spent on 139 projects so far. And I'm talking on April 2026. So new development bank is playing an extremely important role in BRICS. And as it moves forward to align with ISRO, for example, it is becoming a major vehicle for disaster management in the BRICS countries. If you look at UPI, which you alluded to, in India we are doing 10 billion transactions a month. And we have already exported this to 50 countries. You mentioned other countries are not adopting, I don't know what figures you have from where. My figures show that 50 countries have already adopted it, 26 of them in Africa. So therefore, my take is, BRICS is the most and the strongest counter to any American hegemonism. And if China tries to dominate BRICS through its own efforts, then India as a Quad member will not allow that to happen. So I think India is very strategically placed to play an extremely important role both in BRICS and Quad to ensure that both the hegemonistic tendencies don't get full play. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much. So I think, Shri Dadu brought down, the complexity in these multilateral relations. So now I think,
Thank you. Good afternoon. First of all, let me thank IIFT for inviting me and hosting this panel discussion. I would focus on the specific topic of BRICS amid geopolitical turbulence in a multipolar world. At the present, my personal take is slightly different. I'm not talking about a multipolar world. In reality, we are today in a bipolar world. One side is US, and the other side is the rest of the world. And within that rest of the world, you have different caucus or different groupings, whether it is IPSA, whether it is BRICS, whether it is WTO, whether it is A, B, C, Quad, whatever you have. The problem which I see here, that all these countries or all these groupings collectively have not shown their might, their wisdom, their diplomacy to even politely and unison tell or signal to US that what you are doing is not correct and it is going to bring a bigger disorder in the whole world. So countries are bilaterally talking, some noises here and there, but as a very cohesive group, this I have not seen. And that reminds me way back in 2008-9 when the global economic recession happened. And there were G20 summits in which US was participating and had taken a lot of protectionist measures, but still G20 summit declaration had paragraphs on not having protectionist measure by the countries. That kind of a political wisdom or the leadership is lacking in the present, all these forums which I am seeing. And therefore, I see this BRICS chair for India as a very good opportunity for India. I agree with my panel. The leadership quality or acceptance of India, not only in the global south, but even with the global north, except a few countries, is well recognized because India has all along worked on sometimes even leaving its own core national interest, but for the global community. And India has shown that. So that kind of a trust on India's leadership is still there. Now, when we talk about how to have this geopolitical turbulence, a way out for that, the only solution I see is peace. How do we resolve this conflict between US, Israel and Iran, or to that extent, Russia and Ukraine? And perhaps I don't think neutrality by any country is a solution to that. Because this conflict, we have seen oil prices going up, many countries have been facing a lot of challenges. Even India is facing challenges. Even the Prime Minister had to announce that please work from home, stop going and traveling. Now, this is a very grave situation. And only when I see if during this period of time, because if you see the theme for India's leadership of BRICS in chairman is resilience, cooperation, innovation, sustainability. Now, all these four can only come when you have a peace. The conflicts are resolved. So that is one political side or a diplomatic side which needs to be taken. The second comes about how do you manage business? Now for that, again, the freight charges have gone, everything has gone, the cost of trade has increased. Now what is the way out? If we go through a conventional transport route, there are problems. So we have to look for alternate connectivity. And in this, I think one of the things which many of the countries which are missing is the power of multimodal transport system. Still 80% of the global trade is through marine ship, but we need to look into alternative methods. Are there multimodal transport system by which we can reduce the cost of trade? Secondly, if you see most of the countries, especially even in this region and India, our cost of trade with South is much higher than North. How do we reduce the transition cost? And that is where I will go. The solution lies in how one digitalize exchange of data for trading system across the board basis. And I think if in BRICS or any other forum, the countries could talk about electronic exchange of data, at least for trade, because there are no secrets there. All the documents are being given in a physical form, so the information is available to the importing country, and therefore the same data, if it is transmitted through electronic mode, I don't think there would be any sensitivity regarding that, because you are sharing what is being shared manually. And so digitalization in international trading system is important, and I think BRICS can work on that. The last point which I would like to make is about the theme on resilience. How do you build a resilience system, and can BRICS come out with some framework looking into bringing some kind of a certainty in the trading system, at least within the BRICS? So I'm not saying you have a preferential trading agreement, I'm not saying you have a free trade agreement, but BRICS, if you see, 49% of the world population is in BRICS, 40% of the global GDP is in BRICS, and 26% of the global trade is in BRICS. So with this weight, if we can have certain framework, certain understanding, which even not legally binding, but maybe for a welfare and goodness of the countries, I think that will really be a good beginning to kickstart the process of bringing a resilient system. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your thought-provoking arguments, and peace is, I think, what I say is peace is crucial to that. So ईश्वर मदद करे तभी हो जाएगी. But how peace will come, there is no ready-made recipe to that. But digitalization is yes, and digitalization, what Mr. Yashvir ji and Ambassador Gurjit Singh has said is India is fast ahead. We talked about DPI, we talk about UPI. India, 49% of the on-time digital transactions only by India, more than any country on the earth. So India lead that. But I think what Ambassador Gurjit brought is will they, like Singapore kind of an example, will it be acceptable to India? Do we have anything like that? So there are a lot of things. Now I give it to Dr. Smita. Smita has got another international exposure in dealing with these issues. Smita.
Thank you, sir. While I would agree with Professor Gurjit that how the internal dynamics, when there are parties who don't see an eye to eye with several other geopolitical issues, are part of the same grouping, that really casts a shadow on the final decisions or the communiques which are there. Having, as myself being privy to the G20, I was leading the G20 working group, agriculture working group, and also I've also led the agriculture working group for BRICS in 2023, and that was very, very difficult time to come up with some kind of a consensus. But still, I would still share the optimism which my other panelists have also shown, saying that, that we should not really look at BRICS only from particularly the geopolitical angle. I would say that a more practical question would be that whether BRICS can in some way help the countries to tide over the kind of situations which are being faced by now because of the food supply disruptions, by the ordinary farmers, by the ordinary consumers, the markets. So what is it that we can do there? And that is why I feel that in this entire scenario of BRICS, agriculture somehow takes a center stage, especially now in the light of the West Asia crisis, and earlier even when the Ukraine crisis were there, because there was blockade of the Suez Canal. So in that context, the scale is there. Professor Ratna has already pointed out that the scale is there, but scale again itself cannot bring about strategy. So for the purpose of strategy, of course, there are a lot of complementarities which are there. Like Brazil is a leader in case of soya bean. They are also in meat, sugar. India is doing very well in rice, marine products, etc. Russia has strength in case of grains. They have also strength in case of fertilizers. Similarly, China is a large processor. It's also a large importer of food, also a large processor of food. Indonesia has now come in with palm oil. So many complementarities are there. But at the same time, from the agriculture sector perspective, I feel that what is really required and BRICS, now this India's chairmanship can take this opportunity, will be kind of 4 priorities. The first one is, of course, the trusted trade infrastructure, which some of my other previous speakers have also talked about in terms of how digitalization can also lead to a trusted trade infrastructure. Maybe can we think about interoperable digital certifications, the capacity building programs which are there, and then also you see the mutual recognition agreements which can be there within the BRICS countries for the certifications, because we saw recently Indonesia had also banned our groundnut exports. So these kind of things, I mean, of course, these are bilateral issues which can go on, but under the larger framework of BRICS, can we think about a better trade? Because intra-BRICS trade is also about 1.17 billion is the intra-BRICS trade. So that is a substantial amount. So one point I would say is the trusted trade infrastructure. And the second important thing is the resilient input supply chains, as now we have seen in case of fertilizer disruptions. Now, what is it that we can do in terms of resilient input supply chains within the BRICS framework? Can we think about something like, let's say, the early warning systems when it comes to the input prices? Maybe because we do have under the G20 platform, we do have AMIS, which is for the output supplies. Like it gives you the market warning signals of the principal crops, wheat, rice, soya bean, and certain other crops, maize. But within the BRICS platform, the Agriculture Working Group is also debating about it. Can we think about some kind of a platform because where we can have market signals, early market signals, and what will be the modalities in case of such kind of disruptions which take place? In fact, India, more than 50% of its fertilizer and energy needs, we are dependent upon the BRICS grouping. So that is one aspect which I feel will be important. And the third point is the market intelligence framework. Because within the BRICS framework, we do have 2 kind of things. We do already have 2 platforms. One was by China, which was BRICS Agricultural Information Exchange System. And another subsequently, that was done in the Chinese presidency. And then subsequently, when India previously had the chairmanship of BRICS, we also came up with BRICS Agricultural Research Platform. But practically most, if you look at this, I mean, they were institutional mechanisms which were floated as outcomes of the respective presidencies, but nothing much came up about after that. So rather than just having them as some kind of a knowledge hub, if they can be converted into some action platforms. So this is one thing which BRICS presidency is deliberating upon in Agriculture Working Group this time, that maybe we can have better market intelligence among the BRICS countries when it comes to agricultural commodities, SPS, TBT, these kind of things, early warning systems in this. And then the fourth one I would say is, again, that is because of my some engagements with the Agriculture Working Group which are there, is how do we put women and youth at the center of the supply chains, the smallholder supply chains. And it's not only India whose interest is there, but we have also seen there are African countries where women and youth are very important in the agriculture value chain. So that is another aspect which they are deliberating upon, that how we can bring in, can we have more kind of a capacity building for this women and youth, or what kind of models, aggregation models we can have, maybe very specific FPOs. And there are a lot of triangular cooperations which are going on between India, Africa, and other countries. Even Brazil is also part of it in the agriculture sector, in terms of the student exchange program, in terms of the farmer exchange programs, and also the government officials exchange programs. That is something which also further needs to be strengthened. Now, in terms of WTO, what Yashvir ji talked about, we see there is a very systematic change. If you go through the communique of the BRICS Agriculture Working ministers meeting over the period of time, you see till 2017, there was a lot of emphasis on reforms, the WTO reforms. But after 2017, this has very quietly disappeared, and it has been replaced with a more generic language, and that is like rules-based, discriminatory, that specific language which we are repeating even in G20. So I wonder whether this time, even if that kind of a language would be possible or not, considering that the grouping has become more diversified, and there are already early signals that there are groups, there are countries, there are certain geographies who are kind of countering that kind of language, because they feel that the trade is not really non-discriminatory and rules-based. So, but nevertheless, I mean, initially we all feel that what do these groupings do after all? They just, maybe they just meet, they just have some discussions, they come up with a communique or a chair summary, and then nothing else. But I think it's very important for the point of view of narrative building, and from the point of view that how you are able to drive the agenda. And that I feel is Indian chairmanship is, I think, doing pretty well on these fronts. And these are the 4 areas which I talked about. That is the trusted trade infrastructure, resilient input supply chains, market intelligence, and farmer-centric value chains, especially women and youth at the center. These are the 4 points which I will specify.
Thank you so much. So I think the time is left. Maybe 3-4 minutes each, है ना? So I'll start with Shri Yashvir ji. One of the important concerns of India with the BRICS is that India is having the largest trade deficit with the BRICS countries. We have over $100 billion trade deficit with China, another almost $40-50 billion of trade deficit with Russia. Then we do have a big trade deficit even with UAE. Iran, if included and allowed to export, we have a trade deficit with that. So for that, I will like to request you, sir, that what is going to be the India's strategy to curtail that trade deficit, because this is crucial to that. It includes multiplicity of the strategy that I think that we have thought of, we should address to as far as the economy is concerned. Number 1. Number B is the investment, from these, all south. Because we wanted to, soon after COVID-19, when the supply chain, global supply chain got disrupted, India positioned itself, and not only India, because the whole world said that China being the, manufacturing center of the world or the factory of the world, accounting for 30% of the global manufacturing, India accounting only for 3.5% of the global manufacturing. So we tried to position India as, number 1. But whatever the progress is being done, I think you can kindly tell. And what is India's plan for trade and investment, 1, and most importantly, how India need to reduce its trade deficit.
Thank you, Professor Joshi, and I thank all the panelists for their very, very insightful thoughts which they have shared with us today. And I did take notes of all the speakers, reason being that I have a lot to learn when it comes to handling issues, especially which are in front of us when we are holding the chairship of the BRICS this year. I think quite a few good ideas have come from all the panelists right now, and we are in the midst of our chairship because the summit is due in the month of September, so not very far from today, and we are almost midway with our 𝐁𝐑𝐂 consultations. Some of the working groups have already concluded their outcomes, whether it's in the form of a joint declaration or a joint communique, or I don't know finally how it comes out when the summit takes place. But the focus of India is that we need to ensure that there is a balance when it comes to trade and investment. We cannot tilt to one side in a big way and then later realize that we made a mistake. So treading this path very cautiously, which I think in today's terms, if we call it the middle path, to maintain a balance between where we are as a member and where we are a member of other groupings as well. And incidentally, BRICS chairship is being held by India this year, and the G20 presidency is being held by the US. So it's a very tightrope walk for us, and we are trying to manage things in a way that things remain as peaceful as they can be, because peace is something which has been emphasized by the panelists, that which is very important for economic growth, for the growth of trade, and overall well-being of the citizens of the world. So to maintain peace definitely it's one of the priorities, and at the same time ensuring that whatever is the common cause or whichever issues are there which we can resolve or which we can agree upon for a minimum, I won't say common program, but a minimum threshold, so that there is some momentum which is there, which is built, and we move forward towards the future, trying to maneuver these turbulent times and come out with some new solutions, some innovative solutions, which help us not only in increasing the cooperation amongst the BRICS members, but also to assimilate with the rest of the world in terms of economic development, growth, and achievement of SDGs. Coming to the specific question of Professor Joshi regarding the trade deficit, I mean, right now, trade deficit is something which cannot be ignored. At the same time, it cannot be overcome also in a short time. It will require some long-term reform measures. It will require some important decisions so as to ensure that in the long term, we are able to ensure that the trade balance or the trade deficit should work in our favor. I mean, deficit per se is not something bad. If we are importing raw material, if we are importing the intermediate goods and using them for manufacturing in India and doing some value addition and then either consuming it domestically or exporting it, that helps in spite of having trade deficit with some of the major economies or some economies. But definitely it's a cause of concern, because more of imports means more of foreign exchange going out, and right now there is too much of pressure on our foreign exchange. The way the rupee has depreciated, it is a cause of concern for all of us. But then we are trying hard, the government is trying its best to ensure that we are able to tide over this crisis, and that requires the cooperation of not only the policymakers or the industry or the exporters or the agriculture sector. It requires the cooperation from the entire citizenship of the country. And that's the reason when Honorable Prime Minister made that appeal to the, in his telecast to the nation, that we should curb on ostentatious consumption, we should reduce our foreign visits, we should also at the same time conserve resources, especially the pressure we are facing on the supplies of gas and petroleum products. So this is something which has to be done as a nation. And when it comes to BRICS, these same problems are getting manifested in the BRICS members as well, because all the countries are getting affected by the situation in the Middle East today. So what we are trying to come up with is that head on, we cannot solve these problems immediately, but we have to think about possible solutions and innovative ideas to move in a positive direction. And with that intent, we are moving forward by addressing those issues which can help us in improving our systems, which can help us in assimilating our economies or our trading systems in a way that we are able to increase the intra-BRICS trade to a great extent. When it comes to supply chains disruption, I mean, we learned a lot of lessons at the time of the COVID pandemic, and we have been trying to diversify our supply chains so as to ensure that our over-dependency on few geographies or few economies should not lead us to a situation where we find that we are unable to tide over the, I would say, the temporary crisis. Hopefully they should not be prolonged or long-term crisis. They should remain short-term, as we have been able to kind of come over the challenges which were thrown up by the Russia-Ukraine conflict in 2021-22, and the pandemic, COVID pandemic also, we have been able to come out of that. But the thing is that we are part of the global system. We are not isolated in that. So whatever happens in rest of the world, India gets affected by that. And being a large economy, having 1.4 billion people, which is almost 1/5 of the world's population, it's not easy to come up with policy decisions or policy reforms in a short term, I would say. There are short-term measures which are prescribed, but we have to think about long term. And when we look at BRICS, we look at G20, both these groupings, they have some commonalities. At the same time, they have a lot of divergences also. And India being a member of G20, BRICS, and also having the Quad with us, we are trying to ensure that we remain neutral and also maintain the balance, and at the same time ensure that India is being a trusted partner of a lot of countries, especially in the global south. We maintain that position of ours and come up as the voice of the global south in taking forward the interests of the developing countries, including the LDCs, and emerge as a voice of the global south, both at the multilateral forums and at regional forums as well. So this has been our endeavor, and it's in that direction that we are moving with those priority areas which we have identified under the chairship of India in BRICS this year. And we hope that we are able to come up with outcomes which take into account the concerns of the global south and also safeguard the interests of all the members of BRICS and the developing economies of the world in a way that as we move forward, peace bestows upon us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. You know, such a balanced response, and now you have seen that how difficult is the task of India to walk through this tightrope, and which I think, you know, when the whole world is in turbulence, instability, uncertainty, unpredictability, India has shown unprecedented stability, predictability in its, strategy and policy of walking through, the entire this thing, and in particular with the BRICS. And I think, you have seen from Shri Yashvir ji that, how, we have balanced a multiplicity of the problem. And very, importantly is the trade deficits is, very, 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 very difficult, challenge for India, and but it is not today's challenge for long. Now, if you see, in 1985, India's dependence on imported petroleum was only 35%. It has increased to 89-90% now. No, because the petroleum production has not increased, but consumption is increasing because our economic growth is increasing. So I think we need to look at, something like China, wherein, their petroleum import is not rising, I think, over a few years, because they are also shifting to the alternative energy, but India is also shifting on the alternative energy at probably at a very, very rapid pace that I think the whole world can think of. And another thing is especially our dependence, the trade deficit with China is because of lot of manufacturing goods that we import, and India put a lot of strategies, so it is not a part of this, it requires, you are very right, sir, that it requires a very, very long-term and a holistic strategy for that. Now, Ambassador Gurjit Singh sahab, aapse main last mein, I'll ask you for your final thing. In the meantime, I'll ask, Shri Daduji, because, you are known for your giving prescriptions. So things are very difficult. So you have only 3 prescriptions how India should, walk through this tightrope.
Okay. First of all, we must accept the fact that BRICS, its demographic, strategic, and technological strength, nobody can match today. Even US, if it worries about anything, it is the BRICS. When BRICS came, they were the ones who started saying that we'll put this much tariff, that much tariff. So basically, BRICS is a great counter, whether we like it or not, number one. Number two, as G20 ex-chair and present chair of BRICS, we have 3 unfinished agenda points which we have to resolve. And those are the 3 points I'll mention. We must look at IMF quota revision. We must look at climate finance. And we must look at debt restructure. Only India, as an ex-G20 chair and present BRICS chair, can enable this to happen. Because otherwise, in this turbulent VUCA world, I don't see anything else happen. And the third small point I'd like to make is 85% is the population of Global South. And Global South has never spoken in unison. If Global South decides that UN Charter has to be respected, has to be enforced, then you think America alone can stifle it? I don't think so.
Thank you so much. Now I'll ask, Dr. Rajan, I think you are known for your unconventional, thoughts. You have seen that, and having worked with the UN organization, you have seen that, in the Ukraine-Russia war, so this SWIFT was disabled. So you have a, n number of dollars and it is of no use to you. You have seen for Iran also it happened. And BRICS, you are very right to say that, BRICS is something that, even the US take cognizance of, and they are a bit, it's not afraid of, but they are, aware of that. And yeah,
I say they are a BRIC.
you can say that, but I need to be more balanced.
You don't like to say it.
Very right. You are very right. You are very right. And because, why is right is because the US announced 100% tariff if BRICS goes for de-dollarization. And that is, justifies what it says in empirical manner. I would like to ask Professor Rajan that, under the present, the delicate approach in balancing, multiple forces, it is not only 2 forces. Those know psychology, they know about conflict. So, positive, negative conflict, 2 poles, but they are multi-poles, wherein, we need to make balance. In the situation that, Professor Yashvir has talked on, I will like to tell you that what should be the India's, take on, using local currencies, using digital currencies, and using our, strategy in case of, UPI, digital public infrastructure, and wherein, the dependence on the, one particular currency which is already in the world can be reduced. Anyway, it is being reduced, over this period that the whole world has seen. So I think you have 3 points on this. Thank you.
Okay. The 3 pointers, the first and the foremost and the easiest to prescribe and the most difficult to implement. Somebody should find an antidote to Mr. Trump. The day countries find an antidote to Mr. Trump, 80% of the present problems of the world will be solved. How do we get into that is a big question for Yashvir to answer in BRICS. Now, the second thing, again, maybe practically not possible perhaps, looking into the geopolitical situation. But I agree with Daduji. If US can irritate all other countries without bothering for themselves, if all the countries, or if not all the countries, at least countries like BRICS, which are powerful, can take a measure or take measures which are most irritating and most pinching to US, that is the only way you can negotiate with Trump. Otherwise, he doesn't understand any other language. Now, do we have that might to do or not? It's a big question. And what surprised me, or I felt we should have done, is very recently US imposed 12.5% duty on many countries on labor law. And not a single country has come out and said anything about it. So, you know, बचपन में कहानी सुनी थी मैंने कि पाप या पापी उतना बुरा नहीं होता, उतना ही बुरा वो होता है जो उस पाप को सहता है. Now, there is a limit. If as a country you continue to be bullied and still you remain a silent spectator, there are ways, I mean, Ambassador Singh can say, there are very many ways in which diplomatically, without hurting anybody, you can make your message very, very clear that this is not done, and if you do this, this is the way I will reciprocate. But we are missing, and especially all the developing countries or a global south, including China and Brazil. To a certain extent, Brazil and China went for confrontation. India didn't. And coming to the currency, BRICS, I don't think it is going to be possible. India will not do, because it is still little aligned, honestly, towards the US. But with the neighboring countries with whom we have borders, that could be a good starting point, because we still have a large trade with our neighboring countries. So if we look at SAARC, if we look at BIMSTEC, if you look towards ASEAN, and then we start slowly building as a building block approach, starting from this, then go to a global level, that perhaps would work it out. Because with these neighboring countries, smaller economies, they also face a lot of challenges in the balance of payment, especially if it comes in the hard currency. So for them, trading with the Indian rupee would be easier. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Excellent. Give him a big hand. देखो ऐसा सत्यम ब्रूयात नानृतम ने ब्रूयात सत्यम प्रियम. You should speak truth. You should not speak lies. But you cannot speak truth which is unpalatable. But what he says, you should not get bullied by other. But the problem is that everybody cannot have courage the way he has got to speak through. Might be because of the different positions. And then I think I'll ask my last question before I give Professor Ambassador Gurjeet ji. Because now what he says is one country, US versus all other countries. And they are finding it difficult even to align for a common cause which they are facing. You have 3 prescriptions, what the BRICS should do in this direction. Only 3. Be brief.
See, although even if it is one country versus the rest of the world, I absolutely agree with Professor Sudesh, who says that nobody is speaking up. And sometimes even I feel why everybody is not speaking up. Because there are a lot of internal contradictions within their own countries. Like India will never speak in favor of Russia, otherwise it will antagonize EU and so many other things. So what I would feel that what is the prescription is these are challenges which I would still say they are affecting us very deeply, but they are still challenges which are transient. 2 years, 3 years, 3 more years, if we have to say that, until unless we get somebody more still worse than this. So ultimately what the challenges, these are short-term challenges. We should not forget the long-term prescriptions, which Yashvir ji also mentioned. And for agriculture sector particularly, I would say these long-term prescriptions are, when we look at climate change, transition towards sustainable food systems, those are the areas which we should not forget, that these are the areas where we need to continue our support and cooperation within the BRICS nations, outside BRICS nations also, and even for that matter with US also. So trade and market access and trade tariffs and market access is just one part of the story, but longer sustainable strategy would be that we look into the cooperation which is going to fundamentally make our economy and agriculture sector, as since I represent agriculture sector, fundamentally more sustainable in the longer term. So that is where I would say capacity building and exchange of information.
Thank you so much, Professor Smita ji. So I think it has been a, a very, very tough, discussion. And what he says is, so tariff. So, few days back we were thinking tariff war, but now there is a real war. And when the price of petroleum has gone, say from 68, 69, US dollar a barrel to 115, 120. And even if the war stops today, the price is not going to come down even now. India, because our dependence, 89% of the petroleum, so the shock is external and imported one and not the indigenous one. It does not reflect any indigenous, inability of the country. Only thing, so it's a very, very, very difficult thing. So anyway, so all going into, only one thing I will like to tell is that might is right. There is an old saying, jiski lathi uski bhains. How to deal with this? So I think now I'll give it to, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, because he has got, amazing, wide experience of, handling international relations. I have seen him working. When he was an ambassador, he knew more MPs and ministers by name than the local MPs in certain countries. So, अभी गुरजीत सिंह साहब से हम ये request करेंगे कि sir, please tell us that what is your take and prescription, very delicate, which I think Yashvir ji has talked. But now I think you can elaborate upon the prescriptions that India has to go. I will request you to be a bit brief in point.
Thank you for your gracious words. Unlike Yashvir ji, I am not in government, so I can afford to speak the truth. All through government, I had �Satyamev written behind me. Now I implement it. Now, I must say that I agree with you on logistics. I think logistics should be, trade logistics should be very important. I agree with you on agriculture. I think agriculture could be a BRICS. And I think what you said about the global south, very important. So there are 4 continuous chairmen of G20 who are from BRICS. Indonesia, India, Brazil and South Africa before the US took over. We should try and protect the gains which G20 achieved through these 4 BRICS chairs and work together on this. Now, whether actual coordination happens on this, I don't know. But that is my view. It should happen. Second thing is, let's be realistic. I mean, we need not fall victim to our own propaganda. That is for others, not for us. It is futile to believe that America will change after Trump. The Trump phenomena of MAGA is there to stay. Whoever comes after Trump, red or blue, will follow the same policy. So we should be prepared. Second, the Chinese have never acquiesced in the rise of India. They don't want to acquiesce. When we say this is the Asian century, they say it's the Chinese century. They have no space for India except as a vassal. And today the Americans are speaking the same language. They say we will not make the mistake with India which we made with China by allowing you to grow to a point that you can challenge us. So the rise of India is acknowledged by both big powers, but they are determined to hold you down. So when we do Quad, one of our major concerns is not to antagonize China. And when we do BRICS, one of our major tasks is not to antagonize the Americans. So you may call that strategic autonomy, you may call that bullying, you may call it, but those are the realities under which you negotiate. That you say, no, I can't go with this, the Americans will get annoyed. I cannot go with the common currency to change the thing. So these are the realities which you. Now, finally, recently, I don't know if you saw, Surjit Bhalla wrote an article in the Indian Express saying India got it wrong, Indonesia got it right. So I said, yeah, India got it wrong, very courageous to say it in print, but Indonesia got it right, it makes me smile. I've been ambassador to Indonesia. What did they get right? So he says, over 4 years, $90 billion of investment. FDI, $90 billion over 4 years. But then he doesn't say, is it gross or is it net? All right? Where did this investment come? Let's study that. And then we will realize our own position. It comes largely in nickel mining, alumina mining, and trade logistics. Okay? Do we get that? No. Where does it come from? China, Hong Kong, Singapore. First two, we don't get very much. So that is the reality of India's rise, that you are in a vortex where the world is not giving you what they are ready to give in Indonesia. And you are not ready to open to China the way ASEAN countries are. But I agree with Professor Joshi that I don't think trade imbalances can be tackled. You need to attract more investment. And that, if you make better, is the only way to balance your trade imbalance. But let's begin with our own industry. Why are they not investing in India? And then we should tell the others. Thank you.
So nice, so nice. So I think lastly he says is that, foreign investment is okay, but we also need a domestic investment, and domestic, industry is a bit hesitant to invest in that. And again, to make India great again, I think we need to do ourselves. So I think thank you so much, sir, and very, thought-provoking, discussion, complex one, and, keeping a balance. Satya, but lastly, Satyam Jayate. Satyam Ev Jayate. Aim is only. Victory is ultimately only and only of truth. Thank you so much, sir. And so now puja.
So, a big round of applause for our panelists. The session has been truly enlightening, and I think for our scholars who have come from different parts of India. Sir, we've had a huge conference. Over 100 papers have been presented in the conference, and we have had some very insightful ideas, new thoughts, and new areas of research. And I'm sure today's session will also help our scholars to understand that what is the delicate balance that needs to be maintained when we are navigating these turbulent times. So I hope the learning has been immense for all those who are present here. And I would now request our Vice-Chancellor to please give a token of our thanks and appreciation to our esteemed guests. Sir, may I request you to present the token to Shri Yashvir Singh. A token of thanks and appreciation to Ambassador Gurjeet Singh. To Shri J.K. Dadu. Dr. Rajan Ratna. Dr. Smita Sirohi. And only on the stage of academics do we have a chance for listening to divergent views. So thank you once again for your patient hearing and appreciation of our panel. Thank you so much. May I now request the panelists to please proceed for lunch, and I would ask our guests also to proceed for lunch, please.